Thanks a lot, Katerina. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to my webinar, broadcasting live from Mexico City. My name is Alberto Alvarado. I'm the one in the picture here. Today is Wednesday, January 18th, 2017, 1 a.m., 40 minutes past the hour. And my local time, 7 a.m., 15 minutes past the hour GMT time. For free, subscribe if you haven't done so to my YouTube channel, iiivb Trading Room channel. You type this in the search box in YouTube. This will show up my picture, and then you click subscribe. It's for free, remember. Here it says, you say my name like Katerina. Actually, it's not Katerina. That's incomplete, right? So if we're going to talk about the exact pronunciation. So, well, I would like to thank everybody for being around. Of course, Katerina, always bullying my tunes, my intro tunes. All the guests around. I see here a user received their something like that. Thanks for showing up. If I'm not wrong, your profile says you are from South Africa. If you could confirm that, please. Nobody calls me by complete name. It is too formal. I just say Kate, and you don't complain. So I guess I will just stick to Kate. 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 Da, 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 da. I should write a song with that. Since my DJ spirit is always alive. Yeah, I know. That's a contraction of your name. So, well, everybody, today we're going to have another day free, another day off, because the markets are simply not helping. Let's remember that on Friday we will have Donald Trump receiving the powers of the executive powers in the United States. So the markets are really weird, but something very special happened yesterday, and that I'm going to focus on that, even though we have not enough data maybe to take some risks that could justify to run them in live accounts on cable, and I'm going to explain more or less in depth why I believe that maybe after what happened yesterday, maybe this year is not going to be that bad or that dry of opportunities. We're going to analyze that. Please tell me in the chat box if somebody had the opportunity to listen to the Prime Minister May of the UK, yesterday's speech on Brexit. If somebody had a chance to listen to it complete, please just type it in the chat box, or if at least the most important parts, please just type it in the chat box. In English version, I started, but nah. You said the speech. She said the parliament will vote on that. Okay, well, what I believe, and I'm going to pull the chart about that, but before that, I just want to show off a little bit. And the one went up, yes, exactly. But the way it went, it went up. And the why, in my opinion, it's a game changer. We're going to review that in the next minutes. Give me a second. Well, just started loading my, well, it retraced, but pretty much nothing. We're going to review that in some minutes, but before, just wanted to update how I am doing in the contest. I am pretty much in the same area, in the 40s, but now I am higher in balance. So that means that not even gaining some bucks is helping me. The latest updates in the contest is that this Pakistani trader that I told you that maybe was misfooted when the weekend started and dropped to the 20-something position, just recovered the position number 1 in one day. This is how wild and tough this contest is, because by no means that can be done by luck. I mean, I've seen this trader often. I don't know if he or she really wins any prize, because I see very suspicious accounts from Pakistan, all the balances looking pretty much the same. So I don't know, but at least the way he's managing it, that huge drawdown, I mean, she or he lost like 50% of the account in one day and recovered it in one day. So assuming that is not cheating, that's pretty amazing. So that is what I was talking about yesterday. I believe that when you get into the contest, really wanting to get the top 10, it's really, really difficult, because when you find this kind of behavior, it's not that easy to keep up with that. I mean, I really don't know the style of this trader. I haven't checked his trading history to more or less try to detect if he's really into opening a lot of trades one day or just one, etc. But undoubtedly, it's a skilled trader. Okay, but well, that's another story. That's pretty hard to see. Usually, and I put myself as an example. In the past, when I started trading the contest, if for some reason I had a drawdown, I just dropped it, because I decided rather to focus on the live accounts, in my live accounts. So that makes sense. So, and even if you don't have live accounts, when you have that kind of drawdown, to get back to the position you have, it's really difficult. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to check that the trades today to maybe find out some clues how this trader manages the competition. But yeah, it's tough. This gives you an idea of the quality. That is why I commented some days before about the true value of this kind of contest. First of all, because when you see that, there is no doubt that it is possible. Because I remember when I was starting my trading career, I remember that, I don't remember the name of a broker, specific broker that doesn't exist anymore, that as a marketing tool, it promoted the results of trading accounts, demo and live. And when you saw in 1 month, I remember seeing 1 month a person making a 1,000% profit, but with no further evidence than the ranking, it was pretty hard to believe. It was like, I miss all the time, I'm wrong all the time, and these guys are making 1,000%. Is that even possible? So those are the things that, if you don't manage them well, could really represent a threat to your self-esteem as a trader. I really don't know if all those competitions are accurate and those people actually made those kind of profits. But well, this person just made like 500% already. And the difference is that in Dukascopy, you can go to his profile and see the trades and see exactly when the trade was entered, the trade was exited. So it has value, because first of all, it tells you that it is possible. You can learn some things on the trades, and I need to ask you for some minutes, please. I'm listening to some strange sounds outside the house, so just allow me 1 minute, please. I'll be back. Well, apparently it was false alarm. So, well, of course it represents a huge difference when you are able to check that it is possible, not to compare yourself to those traders, but just to see that it is actually possible to profit. When you're starting your trading career, even wondering if it's possible, even possible to have profits, when you see this, it gives you a real idea that first it is possible, but that is not the true value, where you realize the true value of this. The true value of this relies on that you can compare, for example, that pretty much in average in every competition you have 1,000 traders competing in the challenge. And at the end, I believe that less than 100% of the traders end with any kind of profits. So that gives you more or less an idea. It's not statistical valid data, but it's an idea that how many traders really make it to break even. Make it to break even, it's pretty much being in the 10% area, more or less. And from that, when you compare the equity curve of the traders, the successful ones, getting into real profit is less than 1%. So yeah, this gives you a real idea how difficult becoming and being a profitable trader is. It's not easy. It is not a fast thing. It's not something that you will simply sit down, read a book, and start making profits and retire at 35. No, that is not true. They are imagine, with these statistics, if that happened to anybody, that this super scenario, imagine how low probability it is. It is measured maybe in the area of 0.1%, 0.01% of the traders' population. So this gives you an idea, more or less, when you can consider proud of yourself. When you make it to break even, there are traders that feel that that is not good enough, that getting into the break-even area for a year or some years, etc., it is not worth the effort. But the reality is when you have this kind of tools and you can say, hey, I'm break-even and I am in the top 10, I am better than usually the 90% of the traders, retail traders in the market. So that gives you an idea of the huge leaps that you have to take to get there. And yeah, the rewards won't get even if you make that huge advance being better than 90%. That gives you, again, an idea how difficult it is, and it gives you perspective on what you can expect after maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years of trading. This is a very long-term marathon. Being in the top 10 of anything, it's really hard. Really, really hard. And it's very it's unhappy to see that being better than 90% won't get you a penny out of the market. But it gives you perspective. That this is the next step, and actually the next step of getting into the, well, let's say the 1% of those traders. the advance is you're going to feel that it's minimum. It's a matter of working and tuning in the details of your trades, of your trading, how you understand the very thin and almost invisible parts of your trading rationale. So it is way easier to see the huge leaps that you took to get to the break-even area, because it's getting better than 90% of the people. So it is way easier to see the advances. The problem is that to get from the 10% to the 3 to the 4 to the 1%, the challenge is almost invisible to see. It's so sophisticated, so fine-tuned, that usually at that stage a lot of people drop it, because they believe that there is, if they got used to make huge leaps at times, and all of a sudden the only reward is not losing money, and they stop seeing those big leaps in improving, they automatically could feel or think that they just didn't make it. But having perspective of being in the top 10% can induce you to think that maybe the next steps are not going to be as visible, or as, let's say, you exchange something. Let's say that your trading career, imagine that it's a 100% steps in a stairway. Okay? So you take the first 90 steps, but at every step you make bigger advances and bigger advances. But the latest 10, instead of being bigger, are becoming in difficulty tougher, but it will take you way more time to grab it and to make the next step. So the reward is questionable, because you see, okay, I am not feeling I am improving as before, and it's taking me way more time to make those little steps further. And usually people tend to believe that they are doing something wrong, and it's the exact opposite. That means that you're exactly where you should be. That's exactly where you should be. Understanding how this learning curve works. 90%, the first 90% of the steps are way easier, way more visible. The latest 10 steps are almost invisible to improve, and it takes way more time to take those steps. I can tell you something. It took me the same amount of years to got into that break-even area than the time that it got me to feel really comfortable with my profits. So more or less, you do have an idea. So if you ever manage to get into the break-even zone, never give up. That place is where the magic happens. And you need to increase your patience rationale, and accept the pure fact that this is the way this works. A lot of people stay in that break-even zone because most of them ignore this fact. Others tend to believe that only if they keep improving higher and higher and better in the same measure is the only way to go. So this kind of context gives you this context. And we have a comment here on AAA rated. Hi. Yesterday I went to lowest equity, 17,000 in trader contest negative, as it is possible or above. Well, it depends, because if you were misfooted the weekend and when the markets opened on Monday, the gap put you into negative, yes, that is possible. Actually, that's a huge problem, trading weekends and gaps. that yes, actually that is possible, because all of a sudden the price open in let's say in a price even lower or higher than where your margin call should have happened. So yes, it is possible. After May's speech, well, instead of a stop loss, okay, I'm reading. You didn't use a stop loss, so you had a margin call, but it put you into a negative balance. Okay, well, that is interesting because as far as I know, the volatility and the spreads and the activity in the markets was not that wild to make that happen. Maybe it's a bug, but I'm not maybe the precise person that could give you orientation on that. Maybe dropping an email to support could help you with that. And guess what? Now I'm up 10. Okay, so that is a bug. And you, of course, you couldn't trade after being in the negative, less $17,000, and suddenly you are up 17,000. Well, then it was a bug. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have never seen that. I mean, when I have these very bad drawdowns with the contest, yeah, that at one time I guess I put the counting $1,000, but of course it didn't go lower. So thanks for your comments here, AA rated. It's the first time I see you here. Could you please share us if you don't mind to tell us where you're located, just to have an idea where the audience is. So well, concluding this idea of today's idea on the trading contest, what I said 2 days before about the true value and yeah, the wealth of understanding correctly the Dukascopy contest is this. I mean, this kind of conclusions of inferences are not clear. I mean, if somebody not willing really to think in depth about trading and only wanting to see the contest as an ego contest, they could lose a lot of very valuable information for their trading careers like this one. You need to want to find the clues. That is what I said some days before. You really want to sit down and think what Dukascopy want to teach you with that. What are the skills that they want you to develop? And then you start thinking by yourself and concluding these kind of things. And this is helpful because, of course, nobody will tell you that these contests are done to give you perspective on how many traders end up in negative or in break even, of course, and that is something that you need to conclude by yourself. So yeah, example, today I was like $230,000. 2 days before I am 250,000 rough, and I am in the worst position. So yeah, that happens, and all depends on how you push the trades. In my opinion, is I am not very willing to grab the first opportunity that I see because of the at that time the uncertainty on the markets because of Brexit and overall the Friday Trump swearing in as president. So yeah, maybe the volatility I was expecting to be completely erratic. But yesterday happened, the Miss May speech gave back to the markets at least some light, diminishing in a great measure the uncertainty on Brexit just before Donald Trump getting into power. And that, believe me or not, it's a huge relief for the markets. Because at least, and that is what we're going to analyze now, at least now the markets have something to look at, somewhere to start trusting to put their money in. Even if the UK confirmed a hard Brexit, leaving the Euro common trade zone, yeah, even though the UK now shines as an opportunity because now every speculation and uncertainty dissipated. It's a hard Brexit, period. Yeah, the markets already discarded that fact. So now it's time to start moving the money into the UK again while we understand how the mind of Donald Trump works. And that will give you tons of opportunities this year. Fortunately, because I was really thinking what we're going to do if the markets really get that irrational as I thought they would get. It would be almost impossible to trade. But now with this, everything changed. We have some more comments. Oh, AAA rated from India. Okay, welcome to the webinar. I believe I've seen you. I remember just like I don't know if in the trading contest before or even here in the webinar. So I would like to thank you to your preference and to just drop by and check it out. Hope you like it. Okay, I'll help you to get some points. I'll subscribe to your channel. Oh my God! Thank you very much. Thank you very much, AAA rated. Thanks. Well, I hope that the next trades that I open after you subscribe are profitable and could help you to put you in break even maybe. The pound opportunities that we're going to have these next weeks, I believe that are going to be awesome. So I'm going to be checking in really good detail the pound movements. So thanks a lot. And I already have like 7 demo. I'm going to show you that. Give me a second. And Katerina, I believe, is betting that yes, I am in fact showing off. Okay, let me show you this. This is something that I have really not understood. Let me share it anyways. Katrina confirms. Okay, just information that I wanted to take. This banner showed here. So, okay, let me close it and to open it again. Here it is. I've been here before, but as a guest. Oh, okay. You were very quiet then, because I don't remember somebody telling me you was from India. Yes, once, but not more. Look, I have 7 demo subscribers already, but when you go to the position table, it appears that I don't have any. And I believe that is because I am in 7 people are watching my trades, but not copying them or something like that. But anyways, thank you very much for adding me and to gain some points. That's a very nice gesture from you. Because of volume? Ah, okay. So you need to copy, they must have about 10% of my trades. Ah, okay, that explains it. So maybe they just copied 1 or something like that, and that is not good enough. I already have like exactly this month so far 27. So that means that everyone should have copied like 3 trades at least. Okay, that is good to know. I never knew that. Okay, thanks a lot for the heads up, AAA. So, and again, thanks for your preference on helping, because that is very nice from you. Okay, let's go to, and I close the Lucas copy screen sharing thing. I need to download it again. Okay. I sometimes do things like copy 2 main traders at 100% and remaining 8 at 1%. Oh, okay, now I understand much better, because yes, I was always wondering like, okay, why it never shows that I have a subscriber. Okay. Since I am not really a follower of social signals, I mean, I don't trade that contest. But, well, it's good to know. Thanks Thanks for the info. I need to reload this thing because if not, I cannot open again the screen sharing. Don't go. I will be back in 30 seconds. Yeah, Kate, you're just missing the good parts of the webinar. Now, I was just saying that I needed to relaunch the screen sharing, but since I am using Internet Explorer, I need to reload the things. And by the way, I wanted to tell you something, Kate. Yesterday, at the webinar when the UK data was released, I decided to take a chance on opening it in Chrome. And the last time you see that I got disconnected and all that. But now it didn't happen anymore. And if I'm not wrong, that shouldn't have happened because the update was only applicable to Internet Explorer and not Chrome. So just wanted to let you know that maybe, I don't know, maybe IT fixed it already. Okay. Firefox is reliable. Yes, I thought that until I started having CPU overloading. Same as in Chrome. So yeah, sometimes it's kind of, sometimes television behaves like a good citizen, and sometimes it behaves like Donald Trump. Okay, this is the first screenshot from cable. Let's go into the intraday. And let's go to the hourly. Okay, let's just, here it says, okay, Karina is saying that it's not Lucas copy problem anymore. It was Flash. I read something. Flash will be obsolete. Says AAA rated soon. Yeah, I believe so. All these applications in Chrome, for example, you cannot launch Java. How you call it when they are inside the navigator, the browser? So yeah, I believe that these tools are going to be obsolete soon. All this. I'm not an IT expert, but yeah, I believe so. It's like the trend. Here it says, yes, therefore I'm trying to persuade our IT guys to change the base of television. As it is built completely on Flash. Ah, yeah. Oh my God. HTML5 is taking its place. Okay, well, that is good to know that we will have an HTML5 television. I can bet that will be even a more pleasant experience. And one question, will the build-up for NATO near Russia bring uncertainty to Forex? Well, I believe I commented a little bit yesterday or the day before yesterday. I was commenting that actually Donald Trump is not making a favor to anybody with his bully, macho attitude. That's kind of ridiculous coming from a guy a 17-year-old, but well, at times it happens. Everybody is very brave under the nuclear arsenal like the American one. Everybody can be very tough and very bully and very aggressive, right? But well, I believe, and I was explaining that the real reasons for the recent feeling in the market was for the first time in a lot of years, I believe in history, it hasn't been that many military in Washington watching for the security of this transition of powers. I believe that this, for me, are more nonsense than anything. That Russia, that Trump is like a puppet from Russia. I strongly don't believe that. I mean, the United States is not that obsolete already. They have lost a lot of power, but they at least have some kind of good technology at least. They were surveilling everybody. So how come this should mean that if Russia can get into your elections this way, that means you're living in a banana republic, and the United States is not a banana republic. So I believe all this paranoia from the Western side, believing that the Russian there is just waiting for the first opportunity to take on the world by surprise, is for me it's half prefabricated this kind of histories to justify the presence of the. I will try to put this in few words. Let me think. After the Soviet collapse, the United States really believed the idea that they were going to be the unipolar side of the world, that they were becoming the only ruling force in the world. They really believed that. And in the first decade, maybe, yes, it happened. But Russia gradually started getting stronger, at least in the military side. Economically, it's still very weak, but in the military, they really upgraded a lot of stuff these late 5 years and 10 years. So what I believe that the real reason of this fear, paranoia, or faked fear is that they are really not willing to share the world with anybody. They're really stubborn on wanting to believe that the whole world belongs to the United States. So the idea of sharing the world between China and Russia is something the United States doesn't want. Artificially, I believe that they think they have the paranoia, as the paranoia was in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was thinking, the United States was just thinking on giving the first strike to the Soviet Union, and it was the opposite. The United States were believing that the ones wanting to hit on the United States were the Soviets. So it was like this paranoia feeding itself over and over again. I believe that, and I was commenting that there in all democracies, in all the systems of power, there are flaws and weaknesses. And according to the latest speech of North Korea and the latest reply by China to Donald Trump explicitly saying nuclear strategies in response of the speech by Donald Trump saying that it's not an obligation to commit with a one China approach, and that the United States wouldn't allow Chinese to continue building this island in the Chinese Sea, that they would stop the access to the Chinese army to those places, and then the Chinese authorities just replied very few words but contundent. If you really believe that you can make a nuclear country like China withdraw from their own its own territory, you need to review your nuclear strategy. So what I believe that's going to happen on Friday is that, yeah, maybe North Korea will launch a test of a missile. Maybe China is planning something, and maybe Russia is planning something just to send a message to Donald Trump. I was explaining, imagine if, let's just assume we have a nuclear emergency. While this switch in power is happening, who's going to take the responsibility? What are the potential plans? Imagine we have the transition of powers with the ceremony, and suddenly somebody needs to check something. This is strategical. maybe, let's say, to watch supposed military ballistic missile test from North Korea heading to the United States, not knowing if it's loaded by a nuclear warhead, then what a country like the United States would do? Of course, there are protocols, but at that very moment, we have the fragility that, at least in some seconds, theoretically, there is absolutely nobody heading and leading the United States. And in this ceremony, imagine that suddenly you see Donald Trump or Obama running to try to solve a crisis because it demands to watch something urgent while this ceremony is happening. So I believe that these countries are planning maybe to send a message of acknowledging that, yeah, we know that even you, the United States, are not flawless, and you are still vulnerable. I believe that there are some people in the United States that believe that in that precise stage where you assume that nothing of this magnitude could happen, Russia would like to gain some more territory like it happened in Crimea. So I believe that is why is the justification to put those tanks in Poland. Because they fear that maybe profiting from the apparent soft attitude from Donald Trump to Russia, maybe Russia would feel like motivated to test a little bit more the waters. But the thing is that all this is propaganda in my point of view. Why the Russians are only replying to the narcissistic, egocentric attitudes from the foreign policy of the United States, believing that they own the world. Who were the ones spying on everybody all the time massively? The United States and the UK. They developed first that technology. Who are the ones wanting to intervene in every place on Earth, creating wars on their lives? Like, for example, George W. Bush Jr., assuring that there was an active program of weapons of mass destruction by Iraq. They found any evidence of an active program of this kind of weapons, but they based on intelligence report, the same intelligence agency that now is saying that Russia is the enemy. They assured everybody that they were building, and they justified an invasion there. Who wanted to remove, for example, in the Middle East, this was called the Middle East Spring, to remove all those regimes not completely aligned to the United States. This thing in Syria, in Yemen, to really why they wanted to take Syria, because it is it's a long-term relationship between Russia and Syria. It's a military influence there. So they want really to cut the path to Russia to expand. Because this is the marketing idea for people to justify all this mess. I have always sustained something. Europe is defenseless if Russia wants to invade. That's it. Period. They cannot do anything. The only reply is a massive strategic nuclear strike that is, it has a deterrent effect. And that is why that maybe it's not happening. But I believe that Vladimir Putin is, at least so far, the smartest strategist politician in the world right now. And at some point, under the argument of defending from Iran, they wanted to put a missile defense system in Poland, I believe it was in Romania also. Under the argument of defending from Iran, then Iran for a while got an agreement with the United States, and then still that missile defense system is still there. So there's a lie. That's a lie. What is going to happen? I'm going to tell you something. I live in Mexico. I live in the southern border of the United States. I really know, and I'm going to tell you something. I am way more fearful of Donald Trump wanting to invade some part of Mexico because of, I don't know what reason, than fearing from Russia. Because the one that has demonstrated the latest 30 years that is really committed into ruling the world is not Russia, it's the United States. The destabilizing effect is still there. It has been there, I believe, increasingly since the last 6 months, I believe. This whole paranoia that Russia wants to rule the world when the one that's giving that evidence is the United States, not Russia. I commented a webinar 2 days ago, I believe, that I believe that the Donald Trump uncertainty, because we really don't know what's inside his mind of maybe he's a sick person in the mind. Maybe he is in fact one. We don't know. Besides the UK thing, that's a smaller thing, but we have this major, conflict between United States, NATO, and Russia. The and the market started behaving like there is no any kind of certainty right now, and I was betting for a long-term erraticness and volatility. I commented that webinars before. That is why I was focusing way more in short time frames to try to find shorter term opportunities instead of longer ones, because of this fact. The UK Prime Ministers yesterday put clarity what is going to happen and what not, and the markets rewarded that with confidence. So automatically the volatility, erraticness will be reduced because at least the markets will have at least one place that they could feel average safe in investing, and it's the UK. This aspect of the geostrategic and geopolitical side between the NATO and Russia will be solved only in one way. NATO and the United States need to understand that even though the Soviet Union collapsed, the Prague Treaty, the former satellite countries of the Soviet Union are still in the Russian interest sphere. But apparently the United States thought that the Soviet Union suddenly it died all of a sudden and everything changed in United States' favor. And that is not true. So now what the United States have been trying after the Soviet Union collapsed is to really impose the rules of the United States to take place instead of the influence of Russia. And it was stated very clear by Vladimir Putin some months ago, I believe. The only thing that didn't got ourselves into the Third World War was that delicate equilibrium. And the United States and the NATO is really committed into cutting Russia's ties to everybody at whatever the price it is. Let's just look at what happened in Greece. There was like the idea that maybe Russia could get closer to Greece when this complete mess happened in the European Union. And it was so big, this paranoia, that Angela Merkel decided at whatever the cost to rescue Greece just to avoid Russia to get closer. So this is the kind of things that the Western world is willing to pay just to avoid Russia getting influence in the world. But they're just getting the complete opposite effect. They had Iran with this exchange of terminating the nuclear deal, with this nuclear deal, and suddenly with the latest declarations of Donald Trump, Iran is understanding that this deal is mostly over. So now a long-term enemy that started becoming an ally of the Western world, all of a sudden that changed. And guess what? Now Iran is getting again closer to Russia. Syria is getting even more closer to Russia. Russia is gaining influence in Philippines, for example, along with China. So I believe that this is the symptomatic behavior of somebody that is really, really seriously losing its mind because it's seeing that he is losing influence and power. Bottom line, all this nonsense that I just said is yes, it will, and still is, it is already having an influence. I really wouldn't, I would consider very difficult seeing Russia. I mean, if a country has demonstrated being, in my opinion, more respectful in the foreign affairs is Russia than the United States, from here to the moon. Even in Crimea, maybe that thing shouldn't have happened. That's illegal. The same, and if I have Jewish followers, this is not against Jewish or something. There's a resolution in the United Nations about when the Israeli state expanded, took land, including part of Palestine, as a country. And there's a resolution in the United Nations that said that that's illegal and they should retreat. They haven't done so because they have had the help of the United States. Okay. History is not the Disney movie that we all want to see. But this is the same thing that is happening not the same thing that's happening in Crimea. Here, at least in Crimea, they voted for leaving Ukraine. Why? Because yes, the United States was influencing and influenced this military coup in Ukraine to remove a legit president willing to get closer to Russia. And they did what they always do. Make military coups to remove hostile regimes. So in the first place, Ukraine is way more naturally linked, of course, for natural reasons, to Russia and that side than to European Union. They decided to vote for getting closer to Russia. We had the influence of the United States making a coup, something that they have done thousands of times this latest century. It's all its style. And then Russia understands that that's a threat to its sphere of influence. So what Russia does in exchange, okay, you removed illegally a government that wanted to get to be an ally of mine. Okay, as a retaliation, I will take Crimea. But the difference is that in Crimea, apparently they are happy to be part of Russia instead of being part of Ukraine. Because when you look at the conditions, I'm not Ukrainian, of course. I have some kind of information in my hand that indicates that at least in Crimea, they felt like they were like the forgotten part of Ukraine. They were like, I don't know, like if they didn't, if the central government really didn't care about them. So this is a complete difference. When you gain the legitimacy of belonging to one country or another by the happiness of the people. In Crimea, people apparently is happy to belong now to Russia. The reason why the United States lost the war in Iraq is because they didn't got the hearts of the people. So the Western world is suddenly making it and committing all the imaginable mistakes on foreign policy. They are trying to impose governments by military coups, and they are crying like babies just because the other part saw the opportunity and took it, and besides, people is happy. So how can you argue with that? You can argue with something like, for example, that happened in Israel, because they took parts of territory of people that is not happy that happening. But the inhabitants of Crimea, by the way, a lot of them Russians, are happy with that. At least what I know. And independent journalism, people is happy. Maybe naively, because things won't change just because they belong to Russia. But they really felt forgotten by Ukraine. And besides, you have the Western world imposing a government that it was pro-European. I mean, this is a huge chess game. And all the foreign policy and the geostrategic interests are not defined by morals. They are defined by interests. And yeah, I wouldn't discard that the president who was elected in Ukraine to be pro-Russian was influenced by Russia. And then the United States said, no way. And then Russia said, why not? Okay, so this is like a tension that's been around in the atmosphere, and it will stay that way for long. Why? Because even if Donald Trump fixes things with Russia, Donald Trump has already made a perfect job to gain as an enemy in China. And China is not small words. Not because China doesn't have the nuclear arsenal of Russia means that it's not a huge threat to the life on Earth. An exchange of this kind of war between the United States and China is a trigger to the Third World War. No matter if it starts between Russia and the United States. If it starts between the United States and China, we have the same exact possibilities of having this Third World War triggered. And this is the way the world is going. So this pseudo-genius mastermind called Donald Trump that said and felt very secure of himself, believing that he was going to avoid the Third World War, is gaining a complete equivalent conflict between China that could trigger the exact same thing. So yeah, it will have influence, less and less if Russia and the United States got closer. But now, the closer the United States gets to Russia, the further relationships it will have with China. And the Chinese are very patient. Very patient. But everybody has a limit. Donald Trump is the complete opposite. He's somebody that simply doesn't know what patience is. He behaves like if he's always having a rocket in the ass. That he doesn't, if he doesn't, is not talking and spitting and talking evil on somebody. It's like if his day is not enough. So yeah, these conflict circumstances between Russia and China and the United States, NATO, and the Western world maybe are going to be diminished, but just to be increased, maybe in a way faster pace in the Southeast Asia. Because let's remember that now Philippines is wanting to have a complete divorce between the United States and Philippines. And it's already taking seriously to get very close ties to China. And that's a game changer there. Because if the United States doesn't have the cooperation from the Philippines, it's pretty much impossible that he can get what Donald Trump says, avoiding China to get in those islands. So we should start moving our attention into the Southeast Asia thing, including North Korea, because there is where the real tensions are going to happen. But who cares where the tanks are? Now are in Poland. I believe that maybe it's just to chill this paranoia. As I always said, if Russia wants something, he's just strong enough to take it. Period. It's the United States. They are equivalent in power. If they want something, they do it. Period. Because there is nobody that is really willing to counterfight that. Here it says, China can't build island in Chinese Sea, no logic by USA. Yeah, USA goes for oil always. It sounds like a mafia movie, USA and Israel. Yes, it's sad. It's very sad, and I've been talking about, and Karina wouldn't allow me to lie. Part of becoming a trader is part of being really willing to take this thing in front of the eye and start seeing things as raw as they are. All this, democratic speech of freedom, the United States wants to make everybody believe that they believe, it's a lie. If they really believed half of the things that they defend, they wouldn't have invaded half of the countries they have. Spilling the liters of blood worldwide. And when you become a trader, this is your bread and butter, because there is simply no way to understand the markets without the knowledge of geopolitics seen by this ultra-realistic approach. If we stick to the idealistic, hypocrite speech from pseudo-democratic countries, we would get crazy, and besides that, we wouldn't make a profit ever. It's all about who gets what. We, as a failed species, like I believe that humanity is, the only thing that we can see is just as far as our noses are. We really, as humanity, I'm not talking of everybody, but as the average humanity, we really are only interested in today and tomorrow, not the next 100 years or the next 1,000 years. Because if that had happened, nobody would have elected Hitler as a counselor in Germany. And nobody would have chosen Donald Trump as president. Because by far it's seeable that half of the politics of Trump are going to have let's say, an environmental negative effect in the world in the next 100 years. But when you don't have people happy with their bellies full, if you don't have the basic needs of people satisfied, there is no room to think beyond next week. And then is where this kind of leaders arise and are elected. And then is when the real problems are. Just imagine what will happen, what would have happened if in China we have a president like the one in North Korea. Just imagine that. With this kind of temper, not like this Chinese one that is a very prudent, very quiet, even he looks at times like a mannequin, if he was a robot, not a human. But imagine having in China somebody like Donald Trump as president. With these ego wars, who elected them? The unhappy people, willing for revenge. That's the raw truth. A lot of Trump voters, I wouldn't say all of them, but a lot voted because they have hunger of revenge against the one Donald Trump says. If Donald Trump says that the guilty one is Mexico, then go against Mexico. If he says that it's China, go against China. And likewise, if he decided to say that, yeah, Russia is the enemy, people will say, okay, let's go against Russia. And then it's when the huge catastrophes of humanity happen, like the First World War, Second World War, and hopefully not the Third World War. The markets I've explained in other webinars have become a really Wild West style. Because when the capitals see that maybe we're all good, it is said that we haven't got closer to annihilation by a world war since the Soviet Union, that we are at the top of risks now. Automatically, the markets, of course, if they feel that we have 10% of the chances to start a nuclear war in the next 20 years, 10% is it's a low percentage, right? But the thing is that when you're talking about global annihilation, 10% is way too much percentage. You cannot simply feel comfortable with a 10%. Because the probabilities of being hit by an asteroid is like 1 in 10 billion or something. So that's very low probabilities. But when you have 10%, it's huge. So the markets tend to panic, tends to don't know what to do, they tend to feel like, oh my God, what we're going to do next? Do we invest? Do we put everything in gold? We do buy cryptocurrencies? And all that is reflected in the market, like it has been doing this latest maybe 6 months. All started after Brexit. After Brexit, this sentiment of the market it's really weird. The clue is what will happen in the first, I wouldn't say 100 days. The first 45 days of presidency of Donald Trump will let us know how close we are to really enter a commercial or even military confrontation between China and the United States. In the meanwhile, yeah, we will have erraticness. I've been commenting that since just after this thing in the UK, yesterday, I really wouldn't find justifiable to open any kind of live trades for the next maybe 2 weeks. Okay, I have 10 minutes more. Oh, okay, well, I will start closing the webinar. I just lost track of time. Thanks for the heads up. The Godfather 2 directed by USA and Russia. That is a very good, nice comment. Okay, well, apparently I need to wrap up now because we have the next webinar in 30 minutes. So, well, bottom line, yeah, erraticness and volatility will be reduced thanks to the circumstantial and very responsible decision of Ms. May of understanding that the UK could get really badly hit, managing two kinds of uncertainties, Brexit and Donald Trump uncertainty. She moved forward and clarified things. So now the markets know exactly what to expect from the UK, and that's what the markets reward. Certainty, no matter if it's good or bad, but they reward that. It's way easier that people invest in a country, maybe it's a high-risk country, as long as they feel certainty of the good and the bad things. So erraticness will be reduced just because of that, just because we will have money maybe finding some refugee now in the UK. And there will be some fake sense of security, something is not that bad, but in the very bottom of the waters, a huge tsunami is building. China just said the words that shouldn't have been mentioned ever. So this is a huge warning for us as humanity. And as long as Donald Trump doesn't change the attitude toward China, even though the erraticness and volatility will be lowered because people will, if the world will end, at least in the meanwhile, people will try to get distracted in something, investing, moving money, something like that, pretending something that's not going to happen. So this is like, I don't know if the name in English is palliative, like this, just to soothe the pain and the sore, etc. It will open huge opportunities in the UK, yes. Trading pound, yes. But after 45 days of the presidency of Donald Trump, if we don't see any clear signals of this guy getting institutional, not even these latest movements will last in the UK. We'll start seeing prices moving up and down widely, erratic, with no volume. Yeah, it's like the next stage. But well, with a little bit of help, maybe Donald Trump is going to start behaving institutional. And then that, plus the UK clarifying that it's a hard Brexit and that's it, and maybe Donald Trump really being able to cool down relationships with China, with Russia, and maybe Russia helping to fix the problem between China and the United States, yeah, then maybe we could see the market getting globally comfortable again and erraticness being reduced. First of all, thanks for all the feedback, AAA rates for the chat, for your comments. It's very nice to have interaction in the webinar. I would like to thank all the quiet guests that are here around. Hopefully you are listening still to my webinar. Katerina, of course, for listening and hosting, and listening to my music and my Snoopy videos. And think that we'll have a good day, mate. Likewise, mate. And remember that I always, from Monday to Friday this time, you can drop by and have a nice chat here in the webinar. All the days from Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. GMT time. You're welcome here, and all you also. So, thank you very much, everybody, for showing up. Remember that I expect you at the same time, in the very same place, at Ducascopy TV. And remember to trade safe. This is Alberto Alvarado. Be safe, and bye-bye.